Julia Taylor has only her children now. She and Larry Kearns had lived together for 11 years and were raising a family. But Kearns died Saturday night as he tried to escape his attackers on a city bus. That's Larry Kearns on the left of the photo. His friends called him Star because they say that's the kind of person he was, a shining star. His murder has left Julia Taylor with 4 children to raise on her own. She says at first she didn't know where to turn until a neighbor made a suggestion.
She told me about the police-community relationships. I went there to see what I can, what help I can get done towards burial and expense note towards helping us.
That brought Tom Seabrun on the scene, police community relations specialist.
This morning I picked her up with the kids and a friend of hers and took them over there. They filled out the papers and found out that it was available. $900 will be available for the burial.
Once Seabrun helped Ms. Taylor with her immediate problems, he began working on getting Social Security for the children. That'll take a while to come through, so Seabrun is broadening his appeal.
And the lady don't have anything, and she's very much in need for at least a month to try to send anything you can financial to help this lady with these kids. They need clothes, they need food, they need some of everything.
Seabrun says he plans to follow through on this case until Julia Taylor is on her feet. And he says that what he's doing isn't anything special. It's just part of his job as police community relations specialist. I'm Frances Harden on the scene in Cherry Hill.
Life is a struggle. That's why niggas I know stay on the juggle. Some hustle to double, others hug you to mug you. Poverty stricken, they even turn the church kid into sticking. It seems sickening, but whatever makes the pocket sticking. Fuck police, ain't no remorse for the beast that's lost on the streets. A pistol whip a priest for a cross piece. Some lost sheep running through strips, sticking up top dealers, filling tech clips with cop killers that can stop gorillas, shoving a snub nose and buttholes. I'm not so schizo klepto, killing shit up throughout the metro. My thug essence will always keep me plugged with drug investments. Sketch my reference, taking papers considered preference, and violations that lead to kidnapping, decapitation. So what you're facing is realism that's in the activation. Living off land with 5 money's playing in my hand. Me and fam sipping organic style and eating clams was all part of plans. A bet chilling in Chance Western stands. Out of state connect, slugs, sex, drugs, and grands. What? For my hype niggas, tripe niggas, yo, 24 to life niggas. This is ass, pure as opium, pill 5 for street players to open them space like 3 L's laced with coke and them shots, awoken them fake uniform takes, approaching them 6 strips to young clicks and killers coaching them. However though, fake ass niggas and never know, cause my method's perfected on moving skeptic and never show. I'm soon to blow, stack dough, lay on the low, while I'm sipping Cristal and mist with Long Island and more. A part of nature, me 1 acres in Jamaica, puffing exotic trees without seeds rolled up in leaf paper. So exhale, cause if I don't live to tell, then fuck it, farewell, I see the best of y'all niggas in hell. What? For my hype niggas, tripe niggas, 24 to life niggas. So all my good fellas, have on coke and weed sellers. What the fuck Hezakya tell us if they ain't got bread to bell us? As a survivor, I done seen it all. Peter pay Paul from the cannabis to the lava, stay crack for. It's all war, the streets is filled up with guns galore. Training young for war, getting they minds drunk for sure. Yo, done, cock the 4. Motherfuckers think we playing, back them down, holding niggas for hostage. What?
No frills, niggas, man. Fuck them, man.
It's hard to tell from the outside that this house was on fire earlier this morning, but inside and upstairs, the back bedroom is burned out. Eugenia Washington died here. The 58-year-old retarded woman lived with her sister. Nephew David Moore was sleeping downstairs when the fire started.
Well, I heard my mother coming down screaming, "Hall fire," so I woke up and I tried to come up, but I couldn't get no fall in the stairway because the fire was blazing.
And what about your aunt?
Well, they say she tried to make it to the door fall as the fire when the firemen got here.
David Moore's mother was injured when she fell running down the stairs. She's in the hospital now. Firefighters say the cause of the blaze was careless smoking. Eugenia Washington is the 39th person to die in a fire in Baltimore this year. I'm Frances Harden on the scene in Baltimore.
It's as if Harford County and school buses don't mix. It was the third school bus accident there since last spring, but this time the bus was a charter from Baltimore County, taking youngsters home from St. John's Catholic Elementary School in Baldwin. 25 students injured, none seriously. The bus driver, 41-year-old Elva Taylor of Long Green, also hurt. She's been driving a bus for 9 years, and police indicated her record was clean. Parents told police she was a stickler for safety, but she'll be charged with negligent driving. How did it happen? Well, police say a youngster lodged a soccer ball under the dashboard. It came loose. The driver looked down to see what was going on, and suddenly she lost control. The bus hit a ditch and then a tree, and then it rolled over. 3 men drove up from behind and began dealing with the panic and the injured, getting them out of the bus, while rescue crews raced to the scene. 1 student was killed in a Harford County bus crash last May. Fortunately, that didn't happen this time. As the Falston Volunteer Fire Chief said,
I'd say that everybody, all the kids out were on the bus were extremely lucky right now.
Wayne Lynch on the scene, Harford County.
Yes, the seats that are normally considered safe in the past now are part of a seating system. And the spacing of the seats make this part of the system, the padding on the seats, the height of the seats, and the location between front and back of the seats.
So if somebody was thrown forward in an accident, they would just hit this heavily padded seat in front of them?
Yes, each seat is known as a barrier on the next seat. And at the front of the bus, we have barriers in lieu of the old stanchions that most people are used to.
Is it better than seat belts?
Well, it's considered to be better than seat belts.
So people aren't losing anything if they think that their children don't wear seat belts on a bus or don't have them?
Seat belts can be restrictive at times, and with this many people in one small area, seat belts could be a problem.
Lisa, why drop out?
Because I want to get an education.
I mean, in your own words, what was it like day after day?
You just go there and do nothing. You just sit in class and do nothing at all. You know? Because I knew everything they was doing.
Do you think you'll ever go back?
Yeah, I'm trying to get back this year.
Any trouble getting back?
I got to get reinstated and all.
Milt, 12th grade, and you drop out. Why?
Well, I thought I would rather work, go to school.
Money?
Wanted money, yeah.
But you were so close. Why not work and get the diploma and then go to work for money?
I guess because I was just tired of school. There wasn't nothing in school for me.
Boring?
Yeah.
Would you ever go back? Do you honestly think you'll ever go back?
Yeah.
Will you go back?
One day.
I'm Art Norman. Doctors at Falston General Hospital say in all, 17 children and the driver were treated for minor injuries. And at nearby Harford Memorial, 8 children were treated for their injuries. However, the most serious of those injured are being admitted at Falston. 7-year-old Scott Armstrong for facial contusions and 13-year-old Sandra Coleman for internal injuries. Both are being observed overnight. As for the parents of the children hurt in the accident, those we talk with say the buses need better supervision. This evening we learned from 2 parents who are attempting to prevent future bus accidents that a bus monitor and seat belts could have prevented the mishap and possibly spared their children from injuries ranging from a broken nose to arm and hand injuries. Nick Ukerber and James Smith told me they plan to get other parents involved in their plan and hopefully some state legislators. They feel that seat belts should be mandatory on school buses, similar to mandatory seat belts now in cars. In Harford County, I'm Art Norman for News Scene Update. At 8 o'clock, Gloria Fenwick began moving most of her valuables from her apartment at the Enchanted Hills development in Owings Mills. She hired professional movers to do this job because at 9 a.m., the county had court orders for a formal eviction. As the movers loaded the truck, the constable stepped in to take over.
This is a court order letting them in their apartment.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
I don't want them in.
Now, we're going to go through with the eviction. And, you know, I just advise you not to try to stop us, because you will be in violation.
I'm not letting the maintenance men that have threatened me and my daughter's life in my apartment. Then you'll have to hold me in violation, because my movers men are here right now to move this stuff out, to move it outside or whatever.
I've got to move it outside now. I can't wait an hour and a half.
They're doing it now if you allow them to go do it.
I've got my words.
After a few minutes, the formal eviction papers were checked thoroughly, and the constable left the scene here to make a phone call. He later returned with a different approach to evicting Gloria Fenwick. This time, he was more lenient.
I will wait an hour and a half, okay? In an hour and a half's time, if it's not moved out, then we're to go in and move the rest out.
originally you weren't going to do that. Why
Right.
the change of mind?
Well, I had to get back to a judge.
I don't need this embarrassment. I don't need this humiliation. They knew that I had my truck coming today. They knew that I was getting this stuff out.
Benwick received an eviction notice because she allowed her kitchen sink to overflow and damage 2 other apartments. She claims the eviction was really for fighting a curfew.
Yes, they're doing it because I fought the curfew, and I'm going to fight it, and I'm still going to go to court. I have my day in court, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to put civil suit in. I'm going to put a suit in for violation of my constitutional rights.
I'm Art Norman for News Scene.
About a half-dozen irate members of the Derby Road Community Association, with children and pets in tow, arrived at the entrance to the Cold Spring landfill just after 7 this morning and locked arms. Within minutes, private trash hauler Cecil Heater drove up in his pickup truck from Dundalk to find he could not enter to unload his garbage.
I don't think these people are right and justified. They're breaking the law. They know they are. Let them go to court and do their thing. Let the judge decide whether they're right or wrong.
The protesters, who live just 200 yards away, refuse to believe that the Cold Spring landfill is the only place in all of Baltimore where garbage can be dumped on an emergency basis. They confronted a city official with their fears.
How long have you begun making your modifications and begun trying to deal with the problem? And how long do you consider a temporary situation temporary? And how come you haven't told us this?
We're estimating about 6 months here. At
6 months?
At least 6 months, yeah.
Now, is there a limit to that? What if it's not done? And what kind of agreement do we have that when and if these things are built and functioning, that this will be closed?
Well, there isn't much area here to dump. There's only 6 acres back here.
By 8 a.m., the protesters' efforts were rewarded by this backup of dump trucks down West Cold Spring Lane. Police were called out to the demonstration, but found it peaceful for the most part and simply let it run its course. By 8:10, it was all over. The protesters walked away with the trucks running behind them. But the protesters said they walked back because they had achieved their goal. They forced the public to face up to what they face every day. I'm Fran Fanchel on the scene at the Cold Spring landfill.
The Berrigan brothers and their 6 supporters forced their way into the General Electric Space Division plant near Philadelphia, doing more than $40,000 in damages. The brothers were arrested a short time later for forcing their way into the defense plant, smashing 2 Minuteman missile cones, and dumping blood over classified documents. They say the blood was their own. The Berrigan brothers are now being held without bond. The 6 others were jailed in lieu of $125,000 bond each. This afternoon, News Scene went to Phil Berrigan's home in Baltimore's Reservoir Hill, where we learned from other supporters what throwing blood meant.
Blood has frequently been used in our protests, most frequently, I would say, at the Pentagon, but elsewhere too. In so many of these plants where people work and make these weapons of death are at the Pentagon, where they push papers around. People are pretty well divorced from the reality of human suffering that is the end result of these efforts and labors. And the blood is an attempt to try to bring home to people what the end result is, namely human suffering and bloodshed.
All of those in Philadelphia jails have been communicating with those here in Baltimore.
Well, from knowing them, I would say what they simply want is for people of conscience and people who love life to speak out against the nuclear arms race and to join in them in some kind of spirit of resistance.
Dan and Phil are in jail without bond. The others are in jail with a $125,000 bond. And the difference, as I said to you, is negligible. I mean, $125,000 is not bond. That's king's ransom.
The people here say with bail either at high or non-existent levels, the Berrigan brothers and their supporters may be behind bars for quite some time. I'm Art Norman on the scene in Reservoir Hill.
The murder happened August 12th, almost a month ago now. Neil Resnick, who worked in his father's law office, was returning to his apartment building in the 3800 block of Fordley Road in northwest Baltimore. He apparently surprised some burglars who shot him to death in the hallway of the building. There have been few leads in this case, so Neil Resnick's father decided to post a reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of his son's killers. He has advertised extensively in the newspapers and has raised the sum for a 3rd time now in hopes of getting any information.
A number of friends and relatives and many friends in the community were very much concerned that those responsible for Neil's death were still free and able to commit such a crime again. And nothing that we can do will bring Neil back, but hoping that this will stop this type of occurrence occurring again. We hoped that the additional dollars would create that situation. So far it has not.
How much longer do you think you can continue to?
Well, the reward will remain outstanding for some period of time, but we're going to stop advertising in the near future. So I'm hoping that this might be the last opportunity for someone to claim the reward, really.
If you have information about the death of Neil Resnick, call City Police at 396-2721, 396-2721. Wayne Lynch on the scene, Pikesville.
Also tonight, cab drivers around Baltimore are perhaps more edgy than usual because of that recent shooting. One of those is driver Lee Jefferson, who was recently robbed, but fortunately not hurt.
I picked up 3 men in Westport, 3 young men, and took them to another part in Westport where they said they wanted to go. And when I got there, the guy in front said this was a holdup, and another guy grabbed me around the throat when I stopped and said this is a holdup, and the guy held a butcher knife on me. Said this is a holdup. They took my money, $32 and my watch, and then they run, and I called the police, and that was it.
Drivers say they are worried about their pickups anytime, but particularly at night.
It's late at night, like after midnight or so, you're more afraid than any other time about picking people up. During the early part of the evening, it ain't too bad. You're not as afraid to pick up somebody as you are later on at night, you know. It's terrible. And a person out here working, trying to make a living, has got to be worried about getting held up all the time by mostly teenagers. And that's who all the hold-up people are, is nothing but teenagers. And I think everybody, all the cab drivers, are afraid to drive at night for that reason. And very few of them ever pick up any young people on the street because they're afraid if they pick them up, they're going to get in trouble.
But when you're a cab driver, the moment you hit the street, there's the constant threat of trouble. I'm Toby Marsh, on the scene in Baltimore.
We talked to one of the neighbors. He said they were acting suspicious in the area and that they were unfamiliar to the area.
There have been a lot of burglaries in this particular general vicinity, have there not?
Yeah, we checked and we found that in about the last 6 weeks we've had 15 burglaries in the neighborhood.
Not exactly sure if they are the same people who may have done this yesterday.
No, sir, not at this time.
It was a simultaneous drug bust. Armed with 40 arrest warrants, police in Anne Arundel County and surrounding jurisdictions grabbed the drug dealers in pre-dawn darkness while they slept. By late this afternoon, police had captured 24 persons and brought them to Anne Arundel County Police Headquarters.
My name is Kenneth Lawrence Stray People. I have intentions of working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and I want to clean up the state of...
Kenneth Schrey of Baltimore does not work for the FBI. He is the brother of Frank Schrey, who police say is one of the leaders of the drug ring that police put out of business today.
Hey, people, what's happening?
Right around to your left, Schrey. You know the way.
Okay.
We think it's rather significant. Anytime that you arrest 40 people and break up a conspiracy that's dealing with probably several $1,000s a day in drugs, we think it's a rather large operation that has come to an end.
Are these just street peddlers, or are there some people who are larger drug dealers in this raid?
No, I think these are basically street peddlers. I don't think they're any of the major distributors.
This suburban home in a quiet neighborhood of Linthicum is known in the local drug world as the Temple. It is the home of Frank Schrey and several others arrested today. Schrey called himself a temple priest. Police say the sacraments he was dispensing included cocaine, LSD, PCP, amphetamines, and marijuana. Neighbors say the temple dwellers kept to themselves, but they had a lot of company.
It's a known fact what goes on.
What is that?
Well, I mean, the kids all say that, just, you know, it's pushers and this and that and the other.
Carol Chisholm of Baltimore is one of the 21 women arrested today. The women and the men are charged with conspiracy to violate the drug laws. By late today, most had been released on bail or personal recognizance. The drug traffic in the greater Baltimore area is not likely to be substantially impeded by today's arrest. Police had hoped to catch a truly big-time drug dealer. That's why this investigation lasted for a year. But they weren't able to catch that big fish, so today they decided to pull in the smaller ones. This is Patrick McGrath on the scene at Anne Arundel Police Headquarters in Millersville.
Thurgood Marshall, whose great-grandfather was brought to Maryland by an Eastern Shore slave owner, was born on July 2nd, 1908, the same year that race riots in Illinois led to the founding of the NAACP. The house where Marshall was born was torn down years ago. It was here on McMecken Street near Pennsylvania Avenue, across from the old slaughterhouse. But it was a couple of blocks away, here at 1632 Division Street, where Thurgood Marshall grew up, after his family moved back from New York when he was about 7. By then, he had shortened his first name from Thurgood to Thurgood because he said he got tired of spelling all that. His father, Will, worked as a steward at white private clubs, and his mother, Norma Arica Marshall, was a teacher in Baltimore's public schools. Young Thurgood attended the Division Street Elementary School. Then it was on to Douglas High School, which was then located in this building at Baker and Calhoun Streets. He graduated in 1925 and went to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, intending to study dentistry. But later he decided he wanted to be a lawyer. But the University of Maryland Law School turned him away because he was a black man. He got mad, but he also got even. After getting his law degree from Howard University in Washington, where he had to commute every day by train, Marshall won his first big case in 1935, forcing the University of Maryland Law School to accept the first black student, Donald Murray. This impressed the NAACP, and Marshall spent the next 26 years as legal counsel for that civil rights organization. He argued 32 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court, winning 29, many of them landmark cases, the most significant in 1954 when he broke the separate but equal doctrine, forcing the integration of schools. He led a civil rights revolution, but it was a legal revolution, fought with words and wit and dignity in the courtrooms of the nation. In 1961, Marshall was appointed to the Federal Appeals Court by President Kennedy. In 1965, President Johnson appointed Marshall U.S. Solicitor General, the first black man to hold that office. And in 1967, he became the first black Supreme Court Justice. Appropriately, the monumental city's newest monument is the statue of Thurgood Marshall, a man of monumental achievement. I'm Jack Bowden, on the scene.
Several hundred close friends, family, and judicial peers turned out at the base of the federal courthouse to pay tribute to a native Baltimore son. 72-year-old Thurgood Marshall made history when he was denied entrance into the University of Maryland and later led his first successful civil rights challenge to later admit blacks to that same institution. As his 8-foot bronze statue was unveiled this afternoon, it marked the largest tribute ever for the Supreme Court Justice. Marshall later told onlookers about a story of old Baltimore when someone inquired about his high school.
And she came running into me and says, "Which high school did you graduate from in Baltimore?" I said, "The hell, we only had one." So, but I don't care how you try to get away from it, these things still keep coming up.
Miss Marshall then turned a light moment into a serious one when he talked about his statue and the plight of the Negro.
Some sort of feel that, well, it's all over. Indeed, some Negroes feel we have arrived, and the others who feel there's nothing more to do. And I just want to make it sure that when you see this statute, you don't think this is the end of it. Not for me, at least, because I'm not going to have it that way.
Marshall said he was the first black to sit on the nation's highest court, and he hopes not to be the last. I'm Art Norman on the scene at the federal courthouse. The 2.5-year project to make an 8-foot likeness of Thurgood Marshall began here in the Bolton Hill studio of 70-year-old sculptor Reuben Kramer. Kramer, who is a nationally known sculptor and artist, was chosen for the project over 40 of his peers from all over the globe. Kramer told me he began working on the clay likeness with the help from several pictures and an in-studio setting with Thurgood Marshall himself. The artist admitted to me that there were several negative characteristics left out of the finished product because of Marshall's sloppy posture.
He don't stand like that, see? But his job calls him to stand like that. A justice of the United States Supreme Court, oh, he ought to be like a god, you know. Suppose he was standing, suppose he walked around like that. You don't want to show him like that, do you? Of course not. You want to show him the position he holds. He holds a powerful position. It's more than President of the United States. They can get rid of the president, you know, but the president can't get rid of them.
The likeness of the Supreme Court justice went through many changes while it was on the drawing board.
They said, well, if you do that, put the head back this way. But once we solve this problem, the changes must be less and less. Like his wife was over one day and she said something about the mouth, and I made whatever changes it was. And so if they don't like the nose, that's very, very, I can do anything we want with the nose. I could turn it, or I can just take some more plastiline on it and say, well, he has a ball on the end of his nose. See, we just go like that and we can enlarge the nose or something like that.
Can we take a look at this point at some of the works that were rejected by the committee?
Yes, we might look at these.
So this is the one that the committee rejected?
Yes, yes. I agree.
They didn't like the altar?
Yes, that's right. We felt the altar talked too much, yes.
And so after 2.5 years and $55,000, there are many likenesses of Thurgood Marshall, all from the original sketch. But the sculptor told me he looked out for himself by making extra copies of the bust. Price, $5,000. The buyer, Howard University, the place where Thurgood Marshall graduated. I'm Art Norman on the scene.
Long gas lines and skyrocketing prices drove home to most of us that this country has a serious oil shortage. Our problems with Iran have shown us that relying on foreign oil is not only costly, but potentially dangerous. But Western Maryland and much of our country has abundant reserves of coal.
Well, I think we can realistically look to coal, and frankly, I believe we'll have to look to coal in the short and the intermediate range.
Each additional ton of coal we burn means over 3.5 barrels of oil that we don't have to import. The federal government is asking, and in some cases forcing, oil-burning utilities to convert to coal. If this conversion takes place, we will be able to cut our dependence on foreign oil by 1 million barrels a day. Efforts are also being made to convert coal to synthetic oil and gas. If that $20 billion program is successful, it could reduce our foreign oil needs by an additional 2 million barrels a day. Since we now import about 6 million barrels of oil a day, the Federal Energy Department says we could cut our dependence on foreign oil in half by making full use of the coal at our disposal. The Baltimore Gas and Electric Company is in the process of converting some of its oil-burning power plants to coal. Officials say it will help reduce the fuel costs that are now being passed on to consumers.
The utilization of a lower-priced fuel such as coal will certainly temper any increases in electric energy for the future. It's going to be cheaper than oil, I can guarantee you that.
The conversion to coal will not only affect utility costs, but it should free up much-needed oil to convert to gasoline for our cars. At least that's the hope. So, for better or worse, we are back to the mines. Coal has been with us a long time, so we know it is no miracle solution to our energy problems. And we will undoubtedly pay an environmental price if we use it heavily. But unlike nuclear power, we can control the use of coal. And most importantly, the coal that is so abundant here in Western Maryland and throughout the country belongs to us. If we use it, we will be less dependent on foreign oil and less likely to become involved in a military conflict. This is Patrick McGrath on the scene at the old Consolidated Mine, Klondike, Maryland.
Black Baptists were celebrating in song today as choirs, congregations, and ministers recognized the founding father of Maryland's initial Baptist church for colored people. In 1836, Moses Clayton became a pioneer when he dispelled previous society notions that blacks were not supposed to worship God in a formal church. But when he finally opened the doors to his church in East Baltimore, he attracted 10 followers. Back then, Reverend Clayton was called a troublemaker. Today, he's called a pacesetter. The Black Baptist Church has grown from its raw beginnings to an institution that now has more than 200 churches statewide.
And out of their common heritage, build a church so that now in Baltimore City and indeed in the state of Maryland, the church that is more numerous than any other is the Black Baptist Church. The church that has more property than any other is the Black Baptist Church. The first church that has more gifted people than any other is the Black Baptist Church.
Prior to today, religious pioneer Moses Clayton lacked a permanent marker, but that was taken care of this afternoon as black ministers and churchgoers unveiled a bronze plaque bearing the likeness of the man who defied the odds in 1836 and eventually won. In Maryland, there are now more than 200,000 black Baptists and more than 6 million nationwide. I'm Art Norman on the scene at the site of the First Baptist Church on North Carolina Street.
Randolph King had at least 5 bullet wounds on the chest and back. He was rushed to the emergency room here at Johns Hopkins Hospital and was immediately sent up to surgery. The shooting occurred around 6:30 tonight in the rear of the 2800 block of East Chase Street, not far from King's home. The critically wounded man then staggered up Kenwood Avenue, managed to turn the corner onto Chase, then collapsed in a vacant lot. His assailant disappeared, and police said witnesses were few and far between, but we found one who said King saw trouble coming and tried to get away.
Well, my daughter seen him standing in the doorway, and evidently he ran through the back, ran down the steps and through the back, and out through the field, and that's where they caught him at, when he staggered back into the field.
Why was he running? Was somebody coming after him?
Somebody was after him.
He saw somebody from the porch here and...
Right. And he shut the door and ran through the back way.
Police have no suspects and no motive for the shooting. Neighbors said the 34-year-old King had been in some trouble before, but King's father, who was waiting for news about his son at Hopkins Hospital, said he knew of no such trouble. As for dealing with the second shooting in his family in less than 2 months, King could only say, "It's driving me crazy." Wayne Lynch on the scene, East Baltimore.